Chapter 23. Unexpected Victory. The familiar charm of Paddy Tar's Irish pub felt surreal against the backdrop of destruction still being catalogued throughout both stations. 5 days after the synthetic attack, repair crews still worked around the clock, patching hull breaches and restoring critical systems. The death toll had stabilized at 719 across both stations, a miracle considering the scale of the assault. But each loss still weighed heavily on Jay. Dr. Jackson had insisted on meeting in person rather than through secure channels, gathering his core leadership team around their usual table at Paddy's. The pub had suffered only minor damage during the attack, a few broken fixtures, a cracked window looking out into the food court, but Paddy herself had turned it into a relief center during the crisis, feeding emergency workers and displaced families. "Full Irish for everyone," she announced, setting down a tray laden with plates. "The best we got. You lot saved us all. Least I can do is feed you properly." When she left, Jay said, "Denise, work with Connie and compile a list of everyone, residents, station personnel, and tourists, for commendation. Include anyone that so much as pick up a piece of debris to get it out of the way, those that went above and beyond, and those that made the ultimate sacrifice." "Yes, sir. Jay. I'm already on it." He noted that this was the first time she had addressed him with his familiar name, and wondered what had changed in her mind. He looked around the table at his fellow administrators, each bearing the physical and emotional marks of the past few days. Mitchell sported a nasty gash across her left temple, still healing despite the nanobot acting. Joel's right arm was immobilized in a regeneration sleeve. Russell's usually immaculate appearance had given way to rumpled clothes and dark circles under his eyes. Jack maintained her military posture, but her movements betrayed bone-deep exhaustion. Dr. Jackson alone seemed unchanged, his youthful face betraying nothing of the catastrophe they'd narrowly averted. "We need to discuss next steps," Dr. Jackson said without preamble, cutting into his black pudding with surgical precision. "The synthetic attack has forced our timeline forward considerably." Mitchell nodded, picking at her food. "We need to upgrade our defensive capabilities immediately. The shuttle armament program was a good start, but clearly insufficient against a coordinated attack. I've been working on a distributed defense grid, autonomous platforms in high orbit around both stations, equipped with both kinetic and energy weapons. They'd form a layered defense perimeter that could be coordinated through a secure quantum-encrypted network, isolated from station systems to prevent compromise. We should also consider offensive capabilities," Jack suggested. "Strategic strikes against known synthetic manufacturing facilities on Earth." Russell consulted his tablet. "I've identified 37 probable locations based on power consumption patterns and supply chain analysis. Most are in remote areas, deliberately isolated from population centers." "Good," Dr. Jackson said. "Compile targeting packages for each facility." Jay listened to the strategic discussion with growing unease. The others were talking about weapons, defenses, strikes against Earth, all necessary perhaps, but missing something fundamental. "We're thinking too small," he interrupted. The table fell silent, all eyes turning to him. "Too small?" Mitchell echoed. "We're talking about orbital weapon platforms and precision strikes against Earth targets. That's hardly small." "It is if we're thinking about just winning a war," Jay replied. "But we're about after. What's our end game here?" Dr. Jackson leaned back, studying Jay with newfound interest. "What do you suggest, Administrator Kwaramba?" Jay took a deep breath. The synthetic attack wasn't just a military operation. It was an attempt to maintain control over Earth's population, to keep humanity divided, afraid, and under their influence. And I think our response shouldn't just be military either." Jay leaned forward, warming to his argument. "After we eliminate the hostile synthetics, we need to fundamentally change the relationship between the stations and Earth. We need to oversee nation-state relations, monitor hostilities, and intervene when necessary. You're suggesting we become the watchful parents over Earth's squabbling children. Essentially, yes. With one simple instruction, play nice. And we have the means to enforce it. That's a significant shift from our previous non-interference stance, Russell noted, adjusting his glasses. It would position us as a supranational authority, which Earth governments would never accept, Mitchell pointed out. They don't have to, Jay countered. We don't need their permission. We need to appeal directly to Earth's populations.
He pulled up a holographic display from his wrist unit, showing a global map. We reveal the portal technology publicly. Immediate travel to the Moon, Mars, and other locations. We demonstrate station governance, no taxes, affordable housing, free energy within reasonable limits, elimination of poverty and disease. The carrot, Joel said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Exactly, Jay agreed. And then we demonstrate our ability to enforce compliance. The stick, Jack added grimly. Jay nodded. A simultaneous kinetic strike on all UN facilities worldwide. Not to destroy them completely, we're not monsters, but precise, surgical demonstrations that leave no doubt about our capabilities. Rods from God, Mitchell murmured, targeted to minimize casualties while maximizing visual impact. And then we provide direct communication channels for individuals on Earth, Jay continued. Email, phone, social media, ways for people to contact us directly, bypassing their governments entirely. Joel was nodding enthusiastically. We could establish communities on Earth. There's plenty of undeveloped land available cheaply, especially in arid regions that would become paradises with our water reclamation technology. And we have the bots to implement infrastructure rapidly, Russell added, tapping calculations into his tablet. We could establish self-sufficient communities for 1 million people within weeks, scale up to tens of millions very quickly. Dr. Jackson had remained silent throughout this exchange, his expression unreadable. Now he set down his fork deliberately and looked directly at Jay. That, he said quietly, was my plan all along. The table fell silent. What? Jay asked. Show, don't preach, a better way, Dr. Jackson elaborated. Demonstrate to humanity what's possible when you eliminate artificial scarcity, nationalist divisions, and concentrated power structures. The stations were never meant to be just humanity's foothold in space. They were designed to be the blueprint for reforming Earth itself. He smiled slightly. And you were worried about deciding the fate of others. It seems you've come around to my way of thinking rather dramatically. Jay processed this revelation, unsure to feel manipulated or vindicated. So all of this, my appointment as administrator, the battle dome, the synthetic crisis, it was all leading to this moment? Not exactly, Dr. Jackson admitted. I didn't plan the synthetic uprising, obviously. But the crisis has accelerated what would have been a much more gradual process of revelation and integration. He gestured at the holographic display Jay had created. Your plan is essentially what I envisioned, just compressed into months rather than decades. He leaned forward, his youthful face suddenly intense. Make it happen, Administrator Kwaramba. You've earned the right to implement this vision. Jay couldn't help but smile. So now you're Jean-Luc? Dr. Jackson's brow furrowed in confusion. Star Trek reference, Joel explained. Captain Picard's catchphrase was, "Make it so." Ah, Dr. Jackson nodded. I prefer non-fiction reading material generally. Mitchell was already refining the strategic elements of the plan. We'll need to coordinate the kinetic demonstrations carefully. Timing is crucial. The portal revelation and the demonstrations should happen simultaneously for maximum psychological impact. We should also prepare for resistance, Jack cautioned. Not everyone on Earth will welcome our intervention. Some will see it as an attack on sovereignty. Which is why we go directly to the people. Show them what's possible. Give them a genuine choice between their current system and what we're offering. Jay insisted. He looked around the table. The real victory here isn't military, it's inspirational. We need to capture humanity's imagination, not just demonstrate our power. Russell was already drafting communication protocols. We can begin broadcasting immediately. The emergency channels we used during the synthetic attack can be repurposed for a global announcement. And I can have the portal technology demonstration ready within 48 hours. We'll set up public terminals in major cities, show real-time connections to the Moon base and Mars outpost. Jay nodded, feeling a growing sense of purpose. This wasn't just about defeating the synthetics anymore. It was about reshaping humanity's future, offering a genuine alternative to the governmental systems that had kept people divided and struggling for millennia. One more thing, he said, looking directly at Dr. Jackson. We need to be completely transparent about the synthetic infiltration. People deserve to know what happened and how to protect themselves. Agreed, Dr. Jackson said without hesitation. Full disclosure including detection methods and countermeasures. Mitchell looked up from her tactical planning. We should schedule the global broadcast for maximum viewership. I suggest 1400 UTC tomorrow, which hits prime waking hours for the majority of Earth's population. Do it, Jay decided. And prepare the kinetic demonstration packages. Target empty areas of UN complexes, parking lots, ceremonial grounds, non-essential structures. We want to demonstrate precision, not brutality. And Russell has a list of synthetic manufacturing facilities. Let's target those for full destruction with our biggest rods.
As the team broke into focused discussion groups, each developing aspects of the plan, Jay found himself standing at the artificial viewport just outside of Paddy Tars, looking down at the blue-green sphere of Earth. For all its problems, for all the danger it now represented, it remained humanity's birthplace, the cradle of everything they were trying to preserve. Dr. Jackson joined him, hands clasped behind his back. "Having second thoughts?" he asked quietly. Jay shook his head. "Not about the plan. It's the right move. I'm just thinking about how much humanity stands to gain, or lose, depending on how we handle this next step." "That," Dr. Jackson said, "is precisely why you're the right person to lead it. You understand the weight of that responsibility. I still can't believe this was your plan all along. You've been playing a very long game." Dr. Jackson smiled enigmatically. "Longer than you know. But the important thing isn't who conceived the plan, it's who implements it. And that's you, Administrator Kwaramba." As Jay looked back toward the table where his team was working with renewed energy and purpose, he felt something he hadn't expected. Not the burden of command that had weighed on him for so long, but the lightness of clarity. The path forward was challenging, perhaps even dangerous, but it was unquestionably right. Tomorrow, humanity would learn the truth about the synthetics, about the portals, about the possibility of a future without scarcity or division. Some would resist, clinging to the familiar systems that gave them power or privilege, but millions more would see the potential of what the stations represented. Not just humanity's foothold among the stars, but the blueprint for a better world and a life not as a slave to toil and wages. The real victory, Jay realized, wasn't just surviving the synthetics' attack. It was using that crisis to transform humanity's future. And that work began now.